Hello, everybody. Scott Golden here, and Golden Opportunities Coaching. Welcome to those of you who are new. Welcome back to those of you who are seasoned veterans of what we do around here. Please understand this video is for informational purposes only and not intended for medical diagnosis. We're going to talk a little bit about OCPD, or obsessive-compulsive personality disorder. This is a challenge that I have helped clients with in my coaching practice in the past. Obviously, if you need diagnosis, please see a psychologist, psychiatrist for that diagnosis. However, working with a trained counselor along with a coach and other support networks of a spiritual nature and as many support networks as you can to get a variety of perspectives on your treatment can be helpful when dealing with this disorder. Most people are generally familiar with OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. This is a disorder that deals with compulsions to take certain actions or engage in certain behaviors. Unfortunately, it's been maligned in media a lot as something to be laughed at, but for people that have these compulsions and do not have a manageable handle on them, it can feel like a prison. And whether it's checking to see that you've turned the stove off many times, or washing one's hands compulsively, or any other behavior, the inability to stop doing so makes a person often feel like they don't have control over their own life or their thoughts or their feelings, and so it can be a form of emotional torment for these people. OCPD is where the personality is affected by obsessive thoughts, behaviors, compulsions, beliefs, and or it can overlap with OCD. Now, the four ways that affects a relationship, and there are more than four, but the four main ways that will affect a relationship is ultimately control is the mechanism under which the person with OCPD is trying to create. And so they're trying to create a utopian world where they're not caught off guard, where they're not uncomfortable, where they're not unable to control what happens. So a controlled environment where knowing what's coming in every way and knowing how a person is going to respond and react to every possible situation is what they're trying to obtain. Now imagine we can't know if it's going to rain or not, but for a person with OCPD, they may try to go, well, if it rains, we'll do this, and if it snows, we'll do this, and if elephants run in the middle of the field, we'll do this. In other words, they will think about ideas and concepts of how to prevent problems, even that which seem extreme, that which seem out of balance. And so it becomes very difficult to have a spontaneous relationship with a person with this disorder quite often, because if they can't control it, they're uncomfortable in it. And so that can be extremely difficult. The next thing is that person may be a workaholic or hobbyaholic. So repetitive behavior is one way that a person with OCD and OCPD gains control in their own life. They gain a repetitive nature to what they're doing, what they're thinking, what they're focused on, thinking about, working with. And so if they're really good at their job, if they're really good at a certain hobby like video games or building model airplanes or repeating tasks at work, and that's where they feel they have their source of power. That's where they feel they have their source of strength. In any event, then they will often neglect the relationship in the thought that just one more phone call, one more letter to write, one more email to send, one more box to get ready for mailing, one more client to respond to, whatever the case is. And for them, that one more feels like comfort and security. Now, for the other person in the relationship who may not have the disorder or may not fully understand the disorder, that feels like neglect, and it feels like being pushed to the side and uncomfortable, and they don't matter as much. And so that can often cause hurt feelings and jealousy of the repetitive behavior and thereby create problems in the relationship. The third thing is that vulnerability for a person with OCPD is extremely difficult. This is because they, again, much like have a solution for every problem that could exist, also have an answer to every question that could be asked. And so this goes hand in hand with our final point, which is the rules. there is a rule for how to respond to every situation in their mind. There is a proper response. There's a proper tone. There's a way to say things. There's a way not to say things. There's a way to not be offensive. There's a way to stand up for yourself. There's a way to organize ideas and thoughts and concepts. And so the rules can often become extremely difficult because the person who doesn't have the disorder may actually fall into kind of agreeing to certain things that they wouldn't under normal circumstances, ways of behavior, ways of doing things, because it's uncomfortable for the person they love to have other circumstances. Now, when a person who doesn't have the disorder leaves the relationship, they suddenly realize that most people don't act that way or behave that way, and so now if they go into another relationship or have other friendships or nurture other family relationships, other people may judge them for engaging in the in the either the relationship or the repetitive behaviors in a way to soothe their partner or their friend. And so now they've got this conflict of, well, this person needs me to do this, but you're saying it's weird or different or unhealthy or whatever you're saying. And so there's a struggle internally for the non-affected partner. And the rules often don't necessarily follow a logic that the everyday person who doesn't have the disorder may experience. And so to the person with the disorder, they may explain their rules and it makes perfect sense to them. And in the world and prism they live in, the idea that someone doesn't understand why they behave the way they do is really confusing. It's difficult. It's hard. It's uncomfortable. But for the person who is experiencing that for the first time, or the non-affected partner, they're looking and going, what in the world do you come from? And so that can be really difficult. Again, if you know someone struggling with this disorder, or if you yourself are, or if you're in a relationship where you feel someone might be, please get the proper medical assistance. Obviously, I know there's a lot of resistance to treatment, and so finding treatment plans that work for everybody can be a little challenging. Don't give up, because the people that are going through these types of disorders are wonderful people for the most part. Most of the time, they just need a way to be able to conquer what they're going through and explain it in a way that can be received with love and compassion, and find ways to manage the compulsions as they come, be they in personality or in habit. And so it's super important that we show great compassion to these individuals. Until next time, keep your feet on the ground, your mind in the moment.